Good afternoon, everyone. We would like to welcome our guest today from the Hubert Humphrey Fellowship Program. Welcome. Earlier today, the Secretary General addressed the summit meeting of the Arab League at the Dead Sea in Jordan. He said that the United Nations attaches the highest importance to its partnership with the Arab League. The Secretary General also appealed to the leadership of the Arab region to shape a new Arab world able to address and solve by itself differences through dialogue and cooperation. He saluted the Arab tradition of hospitality, manifesting itself in the millions of refugees who have been given shelter throughout the region. He said, and this is a quote, "It breaks my heart to see developed countries closing their borders to refugees fleeing this region, and worse, sometimes invoking religion as a reason to keep them out." The Secretary General also appealed to Arab unity in tackling the conflicts that are present in the region. Last night, the Secretary General had a bilateral meeting with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi of Egypt, during which they discussed the situations in Libya and Iraq, as well as the Israeli-Palestinian situation. The Secretary General is scheduled to have a number of other bilateral meetings today. In a statement we issued yesterday evening, we confirmed that the remains discovered by peacekeepers from the United Nations mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo on the 27th of March outside of the city of Kananga in the Congolese Kasai Central Province are those of Michael Sharp of the United States and Zaida Catalan of Sweden. They were members of the group of experts on the Democratic Republic of the Congo who had gone missing since the 12th of March 2017. In the statement, the Secretary General said that Michael and Zaida had lost their lives seeking to understand the causes of conflict and insecurity in the DRC in order to help bring peace to the country and its people. We will honor their memory by continuing to support the invaluable work of the group of experts and the whole UN family in the DRC. It is our hope that the cause of their deaths will be determined following a more thorough examination. We trust that the Congolese authorities will conduct a full investigation into this incident. The United Nations will also conduct an inquiry. In case of criminal acts, the United Nations will do everything possible to ensure that justice is done. And the United Nations mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo also expressed its profound condolences to the families, friends, and colleagues of Michael Sharp and Zaida Catalan. The head of MONUSCO, Mama Sidikou, said that the mission and the UN family in the DRC will continue to honor their work and dedication to supporting a durable peace in the country, and particularly in the Kasais. I have two announcements for you. First, the Secretary General and the Food and Agriculture Organization Director General, Jose Graciano da Silva, announced today their appointment of David Beasley of the United States as Executive Director of the World Food Program at the Undersecretary General level, in succession to Ertharin Cousin of the United States. The Executive Board of WFP has confirmed its concurrence with the appointment. The Secretary General and Director General expressed their deep appreciation to Ms. Cousin for her leadership of WFP over the last 5 years. She has led the program during an unprecedented time of multiple humanitarian crises, leveraging partnerships and innovative tools to reach those furthest behind. Both wish her every success in her continuing endeavors. Mr. Beasley brings to the position extensive experience with key governmental and business leaders and stakeholders around the world, with very strong resource mobilization skills. We have a full biography of Mr. Beasley available in our office. And the second appointment I have, the Secretary General has also announced today the appointment of Izumi Nakamitsu of Japan as the next Undersecretary General and High Representative for Disarmament Affairs in the Office of Disarmament Affairs. She will succeed Kim Won-soo of the Republic of Korea, to whom the Secretary General is grateful for his commitment and dedicated service to the organization. Currently Assistant Administrator for the Crisis Response Unit of the United Nations Development Program, Ms. Nakamitsu has many years of service within and outside the United Nations system, most recently as Special Advisor ad interim on follow-up to the Summit on Addressing Large Movements of Refugees and Migrants. Her bio is in our office. Displacement of civilians from West Mosul in Iraq continues to rise rapidly. Currently, 298,000 people are displaced as a result of the military operations in Mosul. An estimated 231,000 have been displaced from western Mosul since military operations on the western sections of the city began in late February, according to figures provided by the Iraqi authorities. Humanitarian partners continue to assist displaced families, families on the move, and vulnerable people who remain in newly retaken areas wherever access allows. In newly accessible parts of western Mosul, humanitarian workers have so far been able to reach almost 20,000 people with emergency packages of basic food, water, and hygiene items. I've been asked about the 4 towns in Syria The UN has received reports of an agreement between parties to the conflict to evacuate people from the besieged towns of Madaya and Zabadani in rural Damascus, and Foua and Kafria in Idlib, which are known as the Four Towns. The UN was not part of the negotiations or the agreement. We're monitoring the developments closely and remain concerned for the safety and protection of the estimated 60,000 people in need in the besieged Four Towns. Any evacuation of civilians must be safe, voluntary, and to a place of their choosing. It is imperative that all those who are displaced through such agreements are allowed to return voluntarily, in safety and in dignity, to their homes as soon as the situation allows. Parties must allow humanitarian organizations safe and unimpeded access, in line with international humanitarian and human rights law, to bring life-saving help to those displaced and those who wish to remain, and identify and respond to protection threats. Water shortages, inadequate sanitation, poor hygiene practices, and disease outbreaks are posing an additional threat to severely malnourished children in northeast Nigeria, Somalia, South Sudan, and Yemen, UNICEF said today. Across the 4 famine-threatened countries, nearly 27 million people are reliant on unsafe water, which for malnourished children can lead to fatal diarrheal diseases. UNICEF says it is working around the clock to save as many lives as possible. But without an end to the conflicts plaguing these countries, without sustained and unimpeded access to the children in need of support, and without more resources, even the best efforts will not be enough. More information is available online. The World Health Organization launched today a global initiative to reduce severe, avoidable medication-associated harm in all countries by 50% over the next 5 years. The Global Patient Safety Challenge on Medication Safety aims to address the weaknesses in health systems that lead to medication errors. It lays out ways to improve how medicines are prescribed, distributed, and consumed, and increase awareness among patients about the risks associated with the proper use of medication. Medication errors cause at least 1 death every day and injure approximately 1.3 million people annually in the United States alone. Globally, the cost associated with them has been estimated at $42 billion annually, or almost 1% of total global health expenditure. I would also like to flag today the beginning of a 3-day meeting at the Food and Agriculture Organization in Rome to define an international action plan to stop the spread of the red palm weevil. The pest attacks dates and coconut-producing palms, as well as ornamental palms found in many European cities, and has rapidly expanded its global spread. More details on this are available on the FAO website. And gracias to Nicaragua today for paying its UN dues in full, thus becoming the 69th member state to join our honor roll. And finally, for tomorrow, immediately after the noon briefing, Ambassador Elaine White Gomez of Costa Rica will hold a press conference. As you know, she's president of the UN conference to negotiate a legally binding instrument to prohibit nuclear weapons, leading toward their total elimination. Yes, Michelle.
Thank you, Farhan. Just a follow-up question on the experts found in DRC. It's been a good sort of 24 hours or so, I guess, since they were found. Their bodies were found in a shallow grave. Why is the UN saying in case of criminal acts in the statement? And who do you think may have killed them?
We do not know at present who killed them. Obviously, given that they have been found dead, we believe that there's likely grounds that this was a form of criminal act, but we need to determine cause of death. There are a number of things that will be determined during the course of an inquiry. We'll look into what their security conditions had been, what might have happened to them, as well as, of course, to the 4 Congolese nationals for whom we are continuing to search, as we also mentioned in the statement.
And just to follow up, the U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley said this morning that the DRC government is corrupt and preys on its own people, and that the UN peacekeeping mission is effectively aiding them in that. Would you like to comment?
You're aware of the problems with the government, many of which are detailed in the reports of the United Nations itself. Not the least of which is the reports of our brave colleagues in the group of experts. So I would just refer you to the work that Michael Sharp, Said the Catalan, and their colleagues have done. Regarding our mandate is ultimately to protect and safeguard the people of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, it's a mandate established by the Security Council, and although, as with other peacekeeping missions, our peacekeeping mission has to work with the authorities on the ground. At the same time, it's very clear that the UN has its own separate mandate in terms of what it's entailed to do, particularly in places like Eastern Congo. It is not there simply as support for any government or any force in the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Can I just follow up on that,
Yes.
Farhan? So was that a yes or a no? I mean, the question was essentially is do you agree or disagree with the U.S. ambassador's view that the UN is in effect aiding a corrupt government in the DRC?
I've said what I've said. I mean, obviously, different officials, different ambassadors have their own views. You know what the views of the UN are. You know what our mandate is. It is not in support of any particular force. Obviously, all UN peacekeepers, everywhere they go, work with authorities on the ground. That does not mean that we support those figures or those parties.
Does it exclude the fact that you might think that they're corrupt?
Regarding allegations of corruption, again, the sort of work that was being carried out by the group of experts has mentioned the diversion of resources by different parties, including parties linked to the Congolese authorities, and I would refer you back to the work that they've done. Yes, please. Yes. No.
Yeah, thank you. We just heard the President of Security Council about the special envoy to Yemen, and I just was wondering. I know you answered this question last week to me. Why the special envoy did not join the SG in Amman summit, where all Arab leaders who have actually influence on the Yemen issue, why he did not brief the Security Council via video, why he has to be here at this time. It was an opportunity, lost opportunity maybe, but why he did not? Is there any reason besides Security Council briefing?
The Special Envoy, Mr. Ismailul Sheikh Ahmed, believed it was important to brief the Security Council as scheduled, and that is what he's done. Yes, Joe, and then Oleg.
I just want to go back to the Congo with a little further follow-up. The human rights first policy that the former Secretary General introduced, in that context, would you have any comment on observations that there have been human rights abuses in the Congolese military since support of the government's forces supposedly is contingent on compliance with human rights obligations?
Well, you'll have seen we have, in fact, a human rights due diligence policy which determines exactly when we can and cannot provide aid and support to different factions. As you know, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, there have been different parts of the armed forces for which we have not given support on different operations precisely because of the concerns in our human rights due diligence policy. And of course, many of the human rights problems that you're aware of are ones that the UN's own Joint Human Rights Office on the ground has itself reported. Oleg.
Farhan, thank you. On DRC as well, will this incident lead to any sort of review of the way the UN experts operate in the zones of conflict? Will they have armed guards by their side all of the time? Any things like these, are they considered?
Well, as I mentioned, part of our inquiry will also be looking into what the security arrangements are, and we'll see what we can learn from this particular experience on that. Edie?
Also a follow-up, and forgive me if you've answered this before, as I have been away. You mentioned that there's a belief it was a form of criminal act. As I understand these, they were riding some motorcycles or
They were basically the two experts and their interpreter each were riding with a motor taxi driver. So there were 3 motor taxis traveling.
Was any sign of the motor taxis found? And when their bodies were found, was there any identification? Was all their money, their personal belongings, was all of that gone?
I believe there are certain personal details that were found, but a lot of this is still being investigated. I don't know what happened to the motor taxis. I believe that there were other remains found in the site that still need to be analyzed. Yes, Evelyn.
Thank you, Farhan. The evacuation of the 4 towns in Syria, I assume Damascus is evacuating, or who's evacuating?
These are populations, as you know, there have been 4 towns
Besieged,
that had been besieged for several years.
Yeah.
And those are Fua and Kafria in rural Damascus, as well as Zabadani and Madaya. And those, Madaya and Zabadani are in rural Damascus, and Fua and Kafria are in Idlib. And there have been times when we've tried to provide humanitarian access and humanitarian aid to those areas. A lot of times, in order to get access to 2 of those towns, the other 2 towns would also need to be included in a complex arrangement. Now there's an agreement to which, like I said, we are not a party, that would entail the evacuation of those towns. And I've already stated what our concerns are.
Who is a party to the agreement?
I believe that this was reached by some of the regional governments with some of the parties on the ground that are in control of those particular towns. Yes, Benny.
2 questions on 2 different subjects. One on the Arab Summit. I noticed the Secretary General hasn't addressed in his speech the presence of a man wanted by the ICC. Has he addressed it in his meetings? The question of having al-Bashir there?
It's not something that was mentioned in his speech, but you're absolutely right that our position on Mr. Bashir remains unchanged. And of course, we continue to call on all countries, including those who are parties to the Rome Statute, to abide by their obligations under the Rome Statute and under the resolutions of the Security Council.
The host country is a member, and has he addressed it in his meeting with the king?
I think I provided a readout of his meeting with the king. I don't have anything further
and
to
on
add
another
on that.
question, on another topic, today there are reports that of possible plea deal in the case of Ang. Does the UN have anything to say about that? Is that totally divorced from the UN now that it's in the U.S. courts?
No, I mean, I would leave comment on that to the officials of the U.S. court system. Yes, Melissa.
Oh, thanks, Farhan. The Secretary General has made clear his support for civil society, and I think, as you know, there are concerns about a continuing crackdown on civil society organizations in Hungary. I'm wondering if the Secretary General is aware of discussions in Hungary, an EU member, surrounding the Central European University and a proposed new law the university says would shut it down because of foreign funding.
I am, in fact, aware of that situation. Of course, you are aware of our concerns that all institutions, including academic institutions, have their basic freedoms respected. Beyond that, I don't have any specific comment at this point, but I'll check whether there's anything further to say on that. Mr. Sato.
You just announced the appointment of the Mr. Nakamitsu as a successor of the Mr. Kim Won-soo. And could you give us one more comment especially in the expectation of her, because now is a very severe disarmament situation. And as you know, that Japan made a decision not to attend the nuclear treaties negotiation.
Well, I know Ms. Nakamitsu. I mean, she's a very dedicated and professional member of the United Nations, and she's been with the United Nations for quite some time, and has expertise in a lot of the work we do, whether it's development, whether it's migration, disarmament, or other affairs. So she's very well qualified to deal with this issue. Regarding the talks, as I also mentioned today, tomorrow, the official presiding over this round of discussions, Ambassador Elaine White Gomez of Costa Rica, will speak at 12:30, and she can talk a little bit more in depth about how this process is going. Masood?
Yes, thank you, Farhan. Farhan, can you please tell, because according to latest figures, there are about 319 children in Israeli military detention. Do you have any figure now as to what is it now? This figure was given in January of this year.
No, we'll provide regular updates. As you know, we have our periodic updates that are provided to the members of the Security Council, and we'll give them further updates. But that was the latest number we have as of January.
Are you saying that you don't have any figures?
No, our colleagues on the ground in the office of the Special Coordinator do have updated figures. I believe they'll provide the next round when the next briefing comes.
Or deny that there are 319 children in Israeli detentions?
Yeah, approximately 300 or so there are. But like I said, we do provide updates of those numbers with every periodic update. Yes.
Just to follow up on Benny's question, I didn't hear whether you said yes or no that the SG was going to mention the presence of Mr. Bashir.
He did not mention it in his speech, but our views on this are unchanged.
Yes, but is he going to say anything there?
I imagine that
privately or what?
I imagine that this will come up in different bilateral meetings. He has a number of them. We've shared a couple of readouts. Others will come as we get them. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question about logistic and cost. There is a conference at the GA was requested by a member state. In this case, like when you have a huge number of people, who bear the cost? You know, they have to check through security. Who bear the cost of the event?
Of events that are held in the General Assembly?
Yes.
I think you need to check with the sponsors for the cost of any particular event. Obviously, member states' use of the rooms, there's no cost associated with that. The member states are entitled to use the rooms, but for other costs, you need to check with the sponsors. Yes.
The Israeli delegation has held a conference against the BDS movement today. What does the Secretary General think of this group, given that many are calling it an anti-Semitic group?
We don't have a comment on events that are hosted by the member states per se. These are different groups that are entitled to express their views.
Right, but I'm asking about BDS, not the actual conference. So where does he stand on such a group?
This is a question on which different member states have different views. We're allowing them to do that.
Well,
Yes.
I need to follow up on that because some have characterized the BDS movement as, in essence, discrimination on the basis of national origin, Israel, and also religion. And the Secretary General and the UN also institutionally have spoken out repeatedly against discrimination on both counts. So why is there reluctance to at least comment on the BDS and its underlying discrimination premise?
No, I'm sure that even in this room you'll find different views on this particular topic. And certainly among the member states as a whole, there's different views about the effectiveness of boycotts, of divestment, of sanctions, in particular as it applies to Israel and to the question of the Palestinians.
So you're saying
The Secretary General's own standpoint is to pursue progress through negotiations between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and that is what he is focused on.
I understand there's diversity of views in this room. We've heard a lot of that diversity. But you're saying that as far as the Secretary General is concerned, he has no comment, he's neutral on whether the BDS targeted against one member state in the UN, the only democracy in the Middle East, has validity or not?
Your views, even in that, are your own.
No, that's a fact.
But no,
Check
there are
the
things that are
Freedom
facts and
Index.
there are things that are
Check the
opinions.
Freedom Index and look at whatever criteria for democracies there are. That's a fact.
Leaving that aside, the question, like I said, is one that is on which different member states are expressing their views, and they're free to do so. Yes, one more. Have a good afternoon. Yes.
Sorry. I have a question on the appointment of Ms. Nakamitsu. When will she succeed Kim Won-soo exactly?
She was just named now. We will try to get her on board as quickly as possible. Yes.
Thank you, Farhan. Ambassador Haley spoke this morning, and she indicated that she had been negotiating with the SG regarding the reduction in various peacekeeping operations, including ending that in Haiti, Liberia, and Cote d'Ivoire. I was wondering if you have a sense of how often the two of them are getting together to look at how to reform various missions and other kinds of projects.
Well, they're in regular contact on and off. Sometimes they meet. Sometimes, as over the past couple of days, they communicate by phone. But it's been a strong and positive relationship.
Just to put a fine point on the BDS question, do you know of any other country that is targeted for boycott? Any other member of the United Nations?
There have been different requests by some countries against other countries.
Can you name one?
I wouldn't get into the history of this. You would be able to research it just as easily as anyone. Yes.
I have a question about. I believe your colleague Stephen told us, I think a few months ago, that there will be a delegation from the U.S. Congress coming to the UN during the month of March. Has it happened yet, or they postpone?
I believe there were some Congress people who were going to come last week, but because of a crucial vote in Congress, they were unable to come at that particular time. But we expect that that people may visit later, and they're certainly welcome to do so. We'll let you know. Have a good one.